Hello class 9. Today I am starting from the neck or cervical vertebrae of the movement and locomotion chapter, and I am resuming the chapter from here. Now the first cervical vertebra is called the atlas. I have shown you in the last day. This is the structure of the atlas. This is the first vertebra of our vertebral column, and this is the first cervical vertebrae also. The second vertebra is the axis. They have also shown the axis diagram. Let me show you. Number C. Okay, atlas and axis, they are both joined to each other. They have shown this number C diagram. The remaining 5 neck vertebrae do not have any special names. Right. Now, thoracic vertebrae have long neural spines which are directed backward. Each of their transverse processes bears on its extremity a facet for articulation. Facet means, a depression where they can articulate or join to each other properly. With the tubercle of the rib, lumbar vertebrae have well-developed neural spines and transverse processes which serve for the attachment of powerful back muscles. Sacrum is a large bone formed by the fusion of 5 vertebrae. To it are articulated the hip bones on either side, and coccyx is the last section of the backbone. It is made up of 4 fused vertebrae which represent the rudimentary tail of the human body. I hope you all know that we have a tailbone still now, though it's a rudimentary part, it's a vestigial organ, and no more the tails are present in us, and it is no more of any use rather, but the tailbone still exists. And sometimes, as a freak of nature, babies are born with a small tail which the doctors usually remove. So that is the coccyx, or the last section of the backbone. Now ribs, there are 12 pairs of ribs which, along with the thoracic vertebrae and the breastbone, constitute the bony cage or the rib cage. That we all know that rib cage is very, very important because it helps to protect the delicate organs like lungs, like heart. The first 7 pairs of ribs are true ribs as they are attached in front of the sternum or the breastbone with the help of hyaline cartilage. The 8th, 9th and 10th pairs of ribs do not articulate directly with the sternum but join the 7th rib with the help of hyaline cartilage. So they are known as false ribs. I hope they have not written or mentioned in the book. So you can write it down in your book that 8th, 9th and 10th pairs of ribs are known as false ribs. The last two, 11th and 12th pairs of ribs, are not attached to the sternum and are therefore known as floating ribs. So true ribs, false ribs and floating ribs. Okay. Next portion of the axial skeleton is the sternum. The sternum or the breastbone is the long flat bone lying in the middle of the front part of the chest. Next type of skeleton is the appendicular skeleton, or you can say the next part of the skeleton. That is bones of limbs and girdles. Now limbs, forelimbs means hands and hind limbs means legs. Bones of the forelimbs and hind limbs largely correspond to each other. The forelimbs contain a single long bone, humerus, in the upper arm, 2 long bones in the lower arm, the radius and the ulna, 8 carpals or wrist bones in the wrist, 5 metacarpals in the palm, and 14 phalanges, that is in the fingers. Right. So first, the long bone in our hand is the humerus up to our elbow. After that, below the elbow, there are 2 long bones. One is radius and other is ulna. Next coming, our wrist, known as carpal. Next coming, after the ribs, the part of our palm, that is known as metacarpal. And lastly, the fingers, and there are 14 phalanges, 2 in the thumb and 3 each in the remaining 4 fingers. So 12 plus 2, 14. Right. Similarly, in the hind limb, that is in the legs, The long thigh bone is known as the femur. It is the longest and strongest bone in the thigh. Two long bones after the knee, that is inner tibia and the outer fibula. Then coming the 7 tarsal bones in the ankle region. Then coming the 5 long metatarsal bones in the middle of the foot. And again 14 phalanges in the fingers of the feet. Right? So almost they are corresponding, like humerus is corresponding with femur. Radius is corresponding with tibia and ulna is corresponding with fibula. Carpals is corresponding with tarsal, metacarpals corresponding with metatarsals, and phalanges are same. So I hope it's clear, students. Now the hind limbs have an additional bone called patella, which is actually the kneecap, which is joined to the lower end of the femur, and kneecap is a bone developed from a tendon. Tendon means what? It's a tissue which connects muscle to bone. Clear? Now girdles. Girdles are the parts of the skeleton which help to articulate the limb bones to the main axial skeleton. There are two girdles. One is shoulder, another is hip. The shoulder girdle is also known as pectoral girdle. Clear? And it consists of a flat triangular scapula, which we call as the shoulder blade. You can also feel it in your shoulder, the flat blade-like structure, which lies on the upper ribs on the back of the thorax. Its outer apex bears a large, somewhat cup-shaped glenoid cavity into which fits the rounded upper head of the humerus. Actually, glenoid cavity is so important because we can do the movement of our hands 360 degree because of this glenoid cavity. Okay. And close to this joint, the shoulder blade has a small raised part to which a long and curved collar bone known as clavicle is attached. The other end of the collar bone is joined to the uppermost part of the breastbone. So pectoral girdle has got few structures which are very important. One is scapula, another is glenoid cavity, another is clavicle. The hip or pelvic girdle, they have shown in the picture also, is a large trough-shaped part formed by two hip bones that are joined medially to the sacrum. On each side it bears a large cup-shaped articular cavity, acetabulum. I hope you can see the acetabulum over here, students. They're actually the cavity for the head of the thigh bone, which fits the large round head of the thigh bone. The hip girdle not only gives support to the skeleton of the hind limbs, but also protects and supports the abdominal organs, because there are many important abdominal organs are there which is supported by this girdle. Okay, so here again we can see some names in this girdle. This diagram is also very important. Ilium, ischium, pubis, sacrum, coccyx, acetabulum. So many things we can see and so many bony structures we can see in this diagram. This diagram is important for your exam. Please go through this diagram. They have also given the diagram of the shoulder girdle, but more important is the pelvic girdle. This is a diagram of the shoulder girdle they have shown, but as you can see the glenoid cavity over here. I hope you can see it very clearly, the glenoid cavity and the attachment of the collar bone. So glenoid cavity is very important in this diagram, but more important diagram is the pelvic girdle diagram. Okay, now these two diagrams again I am showing you, pectoral girdle and this one is pelvic girdle. Pelvic girdle diagram is more important, as I have said you. Okay, and pectoral girdle, as you can see the glenoid cavity, most important structure in this diagram. Okay, now joints. The point at which two separate bones meet is called a joint. There are three major categories of joints in our body: immovable, partially movable and freely movable. Immovable joints means there is no movement is possible. The sutures between the bones of the skull box are examples of immovable joint. partially movable joint. Now, the joint between the rib and the breastbone or between the vertebrae. Very little or partial movement occurs between the two bones. Like gliding joint, it occurs between the bones of the wrist and also between the bones of the ankle, between the vertebrae. Pivot joint, here one bone is rotated over a pivot like end of another bone. For example, the skull is rotated on the upper end of the axis vertebra. These are the examples of this partially movable joints. Okay. Freely movable joints, in this type, varying degrees of movement are possible between the two bones forming the joint. The four major types of movable joints they have given. Okay students, so today up to this. Next day I'll start from here. Freely movable joints will start from here and we'll end up the chapter. Now till now, I hope the chapter is clear to you, and there are actually three types of joints: immovable, partially movable and freely movable. Partially movable are divided into two types and immovable has got no classifications. So the examples are important and the classifications are important. Clear? Examples are very, very important. Next day we'll go elaborately to the freely movable joints because it has got many classifications in it and many examples in it. We'll go to that. Okay. And the diagrams which I've mentioned through the chapter, those diagrams you practice at home. Okay. For your exams. Okay. So any problem you can ask me, and go through the chapter properly, go through the terms very properly, the flow charts, the tables and the examples. Okay. Thank you.